Well, overnight budget negotiations between Governor Tony Evers and the legislature's Republican-controlled budget writing committee stalled.
We have statements from both sides. Republicans saying in part, after meeting until late last night and again this morning, it appears the two sides remain far apart. The Joint Committee on Finance will continue using our long-established practices to craft a state budget that contains what they're calling meaningful tax relief and responsible spending levels, with the goal of finishing on time.
And the governor's statement reads in part, I told Republicans I'd support their half of the deal and their top tax priorities. Unfortunately, Republicans couldn't agree to support the top priorities in my half of the deal, which included meaningful investments for K-12 schools to continue child care counts and to prevent further campus closures and layoffs in the UW system.
Joining us now to talk about what happened and what comes next, political analyst Brandon Scholes.
Hi, Brandon. Good to see you. You're getting a little psychic in your old age because you predicted that this could potentially happen.
Yeah.
What happened? Why did talks break down?
Well, I think that the comments that you had from both sides are pretty telling. You know, the governor said, look, I tried to get to Republicans where they want to be on tax cuts. I understand that. I have my 4 things that I need. Republicans said, yeah, we get it. It's not like we're against it, but you want this much money, and we don't have that much money. So we are asking you, Governor, please reduce what you want. They couldn't come to that agreement, so they both said, we're walking away. I think the good news is that we found out that they had been meeting more than what we knew.
Oh, good.
That's good, and that staff had met others. But as of last night, they're done. There's no negotiations. The only piece left in there is that Speaker Voss and the co-chair of the Joint Finance, Republican born, kind of left the door open a little bit, which I think you have to when you're in negotiations, because we have 25 more agencies. We have $100 billion in this budget that Joint Finance has to figure out what to do with. And they've only got 3 or 4 weeks here to get this done. So keeping the door open could maybe say we need to work a deal on something.
Yeah, yeah, we kind of see this, don't we? They say, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, and the next day, okay, we're back to the table. So what happens next to get to that deadline then?
Well, it didn't happen today. So, well, look, you have 25 different agencies yet to go. They're big ones like transportation, healthcare, UW, corrections, a lot of them that we talked about. And you got $100 billion to figure out to do with. And you got until about the end of the month, or maybe as Speaker Voss has said, till about July 4th, because Joint Finance has to figure all that out. Then it has to go to the legislature to agree on, and then the governor has to sign it or veto it. So there's a lot that's going to happen in the next 30 days. And at least they started back on it today. So after we found out last night that no more negotiations, Joint Finance met again today. They took up another 10 agencies, albeit small ones. It took up 9. They didn't take up the Elections Commission because the Department of Justice has a little investigation going on, so they put that one aside. 10 agencies, that makes 30 to date, all small, but it sets the course now for moving forward. So, you know, they'll have the papers, they'll likely meet. If you look at the calendar, what they've got to have done in the next couple of weeks by the end of June, they have to go through all of those agencies, that whole budget. It has to be rewritten and then go to the legislature. So to get all this done, we're in a time crunch right now.
It feels like we've seen this movie before, and you know, as I said, you sort of predicted this would happen. So is this just a normal part of the process? Nothing really unprecedented is happening here, right? And is the deadline hard and firm, or is it wiggly?
Great questions. To the first, this has happened before, and it especially happens with split government, whether it's the budget or another issue, when you have two sides and somebody's got some of the power and somebody has the other ones, you've got to come to agreement someplace. So this is not new. We've seen split government dealing with the budget before. Way back to the Scott Jensen, Chuck Quality days, we had a budget in October.
Right, that's right.
In October,
Yeah.
So that's there. You know, where does this go from here? What's the deadline? They actually don't have to have a budget, because if there's no budget, the state spends money on the budget it has today. It's called a cost to continue. So if there's no budget, we can cost to continue for the next 2 years if we wanted to. But there are priorities that I think both sides want, and they want to try and see what they can do to move those. And so the pressure is on to have a budget. You want to have that fiscal stability, economic stability in your state by showing that you can pass a budget. So while that's all going on, there's other things that the legislature is doing. There's plenty of other issues. I'm going to bring up one that they did. There was a hearing yesterday on a bill on a nuclear plant. So about 2 weeks ago, the Senate passed a bill that would allow for an application for a nuclear plant to come into Wisconsin, and if everything got passed, it would be approved. They had a hearing yesterday. Senator Julian Bradley, the author of the Senate side, testified along with reps from Green Bay. What this bill says is the Public Service Commission needs to do what's called a siting study, where to site a plant. So if we want to build one, you got to find a place. You need 50 acres. How far away do houses and businesses have to go? What are roads? What are infrastructure? They have a year to do that. When that's done, then if somebody wants to build a nuclear plant, the Public Service Commission has 150 days to decide yes or no. It's called a rocket docket rather than spend a couple of years. They got 150 days, and that's a lot to take into consideration. So what that means is Wisconsin, because of the power, the demands we have on our energy, that what we currently have can't be satisfied by coal, solar, or wind. In fact, solar in 2015 produced 1.4 megabytes, or million megabytes. Now it's 800. It's not producing enough. So the only source of power that we could bring into this state, like many other states, is nuclear. And nuclear has changed so much over the years. We had a nuclear plant in Wisconsin at Kewaunee. It shut down in 2013. It's been decommissioned. So nuclear technology since then has changed dramatically. You know, people think nuclear power, oh my gosh, you know, I'm going to glow. No, it's changed quite a bit. But in order to meet the power demand, because of all the plants we're building, because of, you know, everybody's devices, all the drive up on our usage, our demand, you're going to have to meet that sometime, because otherwise you'll face what the state went through 20, 30 years ago called rolling brownouts. They decide, well, you don't need all your power right now. We're going to shut you down for a couple hours and we'll give it to them. We don't ever want to go through that. So this is the next step. And what they've done in the legislature, what Senator Bradley and these others have done, is it's a very responsible way to go about this. It's not just, we're going to build it now. There's a lot of steps they got to go through. And they're working with the Public Service Commission because that's the way you get this done.
That's going to be a big story. Very interesting to follow. Is that all that's going on?
That's all.
That's all?
No, that's
Okay.
not. There's a gazillion things going on, but that's all the time we have for today.
Thank you, Brandon. Great to see you.